Aloha kākou apau, and welcome again to another segment of Voices of Truth, One-on-One with Hawaii's Future, brought to you by the Kiwani Foundation. On this segment, we're very pleased. We're in studio here at Palolo, as you'll notice, and the purpose of that is that we're going to have some great images dropped in, and we're pleased to be here today with Sabra Kauka, who has just returned from an exciting trip to the Northwest Hawaiian Islands, which some of you may have followed in the newspapers. There was quite a bit of information in the daily news and something on TV, and we're following up with Sabra to give her personal mahalo for coming. Glad to have you on this segment, and glad to have this opportunity for you to share your experience up there at Northwest Hawaiian Islands.
Mahalo kaiopua. I was one of 10 educators who were invited or selected to travel to the Northwest Hawaiian Islands aboard the research vessel, the Hi'i Alakai, and it was indeed an honor and a privilege to be there to see these beautiful Kupuna Islands that are part of us. They're part of the Hawaiian Archipelago. And these are islands that I've heard about in chants and in mo'olelo and the stories that, from our kupuna, but to see it firsthand was a rare experience and an opportunity. There were some 80 teachers who applied for these 10 positions from throughout the state of Hawaii, and I was very honored to be among them. There were 3 of us from Kauai, Haunani Seward, David Boynton, and myself, along with 7 other teachers from throughout the state.
How was this organized? Who were the sponsors, and how did this come together? Is this part of a bigger project, or?
This came together because of the leadership of some what we call our fearless leaders on the trip, including Andy Collins of National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, including Ann Bell from the Fish and Wildlife Service, and Liz Kumabi from Sea Grant.
Well, the educators...
And then we had one from the University of Hawaii.
But as I recall, you mentioned that you had some of the participants that were actually selected were really from a broad range of educational backgrounds and positions. And
we ranged all the way from elementary through college, and primarily a focus on science. Most of these people were environmental education or science teachers. My particular expertise, however, is in the field of Hawaiian studies, and with an emphasis on cultural links and cultural lessons.
Mm-hmm. And you had someone from Kamehameha schools?
We did. We came from both private and public schools, from Kamehameha schools, from Hawaii Prep, from public schools throughout the islands, and from every island. Every island was represented.
You work for in a couple of capacities in education. One is with a private school, island school.
This is true.
I teach. But also in the Department of Education.
Right, and so that double link was probably a benefit to me because I teach Hawaiian Studies kindergarten through 5th grade at Island School on Kauai, and I also am a Hawaiian Studies resource person on the island of Kauai for the Department of Education, and in that position I have the pleasure of working with all the Hawaiian Studies kupuna on Kauai, and we link throughout the state. There are groups of Hawaiian Studies kupuna on each island, and we're very active in the communities, and in teaching the children of all the public schools and public elementary schools in Hawaii. We have some great friendships throughout the islands in this group.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know there have been some great summer workshops that I was pleased to be able to participate in that were a lot of fun. Actually, we started our first one on Kauai, what, 5, 6, 7 years ago? How long has it been now? Quite a while.
It's been almost 10 years ago
10
now.
years. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
We must be having fun.
We are.
So anyway, kind of give us let's get into this trip. What happened?
This was an educator's expedition, and our job is to develop curriculum based on the Northwest Hawaiian Islands. And so throughout the voyage, we would venture out during the day, and then in the evening, would spend a great deal of time at our computers writing up lessons that are being shared on a website. There's one, HawaiianAtolls.com is one of the websites, and I can give you those other websites to link
Yeah,
to
maybe we
for
can run
information
them
on
in our
that.
credits.
Right. But we left, it was a 10-day expedition, and we left Honolulu and headed up to Nihoa. Nihoa was the first island where we stopped. And on Nihoa, Nihoa is about 10 million years old. Kauai is 5.5 million, Nihoa is 10 million years old. But there on Nihoa, we dropped off David Boynton, plus 4 other people who were sent to study. There were 2 archaeologists, Kekuewa Kikiloi and Kehaulani Souza, who looked at the cultural sites there on Nihoa, which are numerous. And Beth Flynn was sent up to study the birds. She's with Fish and Wildlife. And Pete Oboisky is working on his PhD in entomology. And Pete was sent up to look at the grasshopper. There's a grasshopper that has blown into Nihoa that is munching away at the rare and endangered lolu palm that grow there. So there's been great concern for the health and, of those palms. So at any rate, he went up, but he found that their population had decreased. They weren't in the high numbers that they were last year, but their eggs are in the ground, and when the rains come, then they will hatch. And so maybe next summer there will be more
So
of these
blew in,
grasshoppers.
they know where they came
They
from?
blew in. I don't think they really know yet where they came from, but there are many things that have blown in up there. It's surprising to me that on these islands that are so distant from any other landmass, that there can be ants and cockroaches and all sorts of insects, and of course thousands and thousands of birds.
Well, I hope the hotel that everyone stayed at there on the island wasn't bothered by too many insects.
Well, the people who stayed on Nihoa had to camp out the whole time.
Well, they camped.
We dropped them off for a week, and there's no hotel per se there. There's no electricity, and there's no running water.
Oh, my goodness.
So they had to take everything that they needed to survive for 1 week.
Well, I don't think we could have left anybody better than David Boynton there to live under those conditions, huh?
Well, I have to give credit to all 5 of them because it's tough camping. It's very tough camping.
Did you get to land on that island, or did you
No,
participate
actually,
in the loading? Or?
we only the 5 who were cleared to land there actually set foot on the island, because the restrictions are that you have to have new clothes and they have to have been in the freezer for maybe 2 days. The purpose of that is so that there would be no introduction of any seeds or anything any invasive species.
Well, that would have been a good idea if Captain Cook and his crew had been freeze-dried before they did their explorations, I guess.
Right. But we were allowed to snorkel around Nihoa, so we snorkeled in 2 areas there. And what really struck me about being in the ocean in the Northwest Hawaiian Islands is the clarity of the water. It is just so beautifully clear. The visibility was extensive, and the abundance of species. There's over 7,000 plant and animal species that grow there, that live there, and that are kama'aina to those waters and to that land.
Well, I guess the Northwest Hawaiian Islands are kind of the brooding area for everything that eventually winds up down around the inhabited islands.
That's what we're discovering. That's what fishermen have told us, actually, and that's what scientists have verified, is that the Northwest Hawaiian Islands serve as the breeding grounds for many of the species that we see here in the main Hawaiian Islands. We also have cultural links to these islands too that go back really circa 400, circa 500, and the stories that we hear coming from the Kupuna, from Ni'ihau, who have told us of journeys from the northern coast of Kauai, from Napali, from Nualolokai, to Ka'ula and Nihoa and Mokumanamana. Now, Mokumanamana, or Necker Island, is right on the Tropic of Cancer, and it is the northernmost point of the travel of the sun, of the zenith of the sun. That's the farthest north that the sun goes. So this island of great power, which Mokumanamana translates to, has just, I think it's over 30 marae, or heiau. Today maybe you say heiau, but these are upright stones in a platform that dot this island. They're right along the ridge. I think we have some pictures that capture that. Once again, we did not land there, but we snorkeled right at the base of the island, both on the north side and around in a bay that today is called Sharks Bay. But one of the names that comes from the ancient times is Ke'au Ke'au meaning the current, and moi meaning to sleep. And when we were there at Mokumanamana and seeing, it's actually, you know, it would be a very harsh place to live. There's no running water. There's hardly any arable land. You would have to take all the supplies that you needed to live, plus harvest from the sea, which is abundant. The sea is quite abundant there. I don't think that there were habitation there for long periods of time. I think that they jumped off from Nihoa and went up there, and then when the tides changed at the end of the summer, they came home to Kauai or to Ni'ihau. But
Well, there have been
those
a
are
lot of,
centuries old.
yeah, there have been discussions in the past about possibilities of what the significance of the structures and the fact that if there wasn't a resident population there, that this place served other purposes, cultural, spiritual purposes.
I think
perhaps.
very much spiritual purposes. The island is actually mostly inhabited by birds, by all sorts of birds. The Eva, which was the most, there were so many Eva flying above our heads. Actually, they accompanied us throughout the whole trip, beginning from Nihoa and then coming back to Nihoa. Then when we sailed back to Oahu, they stayed there at Nihoa for the most part. But the Eva and the shearwaters and the boobies and all these beautiful, the terns, they're the ones who live there. They live there on that island. This is their home. They are kama'aina to that island, to that land. Different aspect of kama'aina, you know, the plants and animals who live there and not the people.
Well, I know that I learned a little bit about some of the birds that at least roost and raise their, lay their eggs and so forth, lay their eggs on some of these islands that are only there like for a short period of time throughout the year, and then they're gone. I mean, they're ocean birds that reside on the ocean.
They're at sea the rest of the time. And that was actually another one of the reasons why we didn't land there, is because this is nesting season for those birds. And everywhere you look, there are chicks or eggs, or they're birds. They're resident there. Every square foot was covered with birds.
I bet a lot of people are wondering if you saw many monk seals. We have a couple that we see around Kauai occasionally. But,
yes, we do.
And did you see anything up there?
Oh, there's one beach on Nihoa that would have been an ideal landing beach, but there were 17 monk seals there on that beach. So, and there were honu on that beach also. So, when Dave Boynton and the team there at Nihoa dropped off, they had to land on an apapa, on a shelf, on a rocky shelf. Luckily, the day that we arrived, the sea calmed down long enough for them to disembark. And we did pay our respects to the Kupuna there before we landed the shore party, and we gave our ho'okupu. Mahalo to Dr. Isabel Abbott for her kokua on this endeavor.
And the ho'okupu was?
The ho'okupu was ohe for kane, maya for kanaloa, uala for lono, and the niu for ku. So all four of the major deities in the Hawaiian belief system were acknowledged.
For those people around the world who are watching us on the internet, ohe being bamboo.
Ohe is bamboo, maya is the banana, uala is the sweet potato, and niu is the coconut. So we presented these gifts into the sea for those kupuna who have preceded us in this journey. And it's been over 1,500 years of travel in this area.
And so...
by our ancestors.
And then you proceeded further up
We proceeded up the chain to Cruz Pinnacle, and this is indeed just a a rock sticking out of the ocean, but some of the most beautiful snorkeling there. And the mano, the sharks, well, this is their home. So we paid great respect and great heed to them. Now the little sand sharks and white tips and black tips, they were not very interested in us, but there were other larger ones who did show an interest. And so swimming and snorkeling in partners and with safety in mind was quite important.
Yeah, so logistically you had to do buddy system.
Yes, we did, buddy system to the max. And it's very important because as you're checking your partner, you're looking behind them, both ways.
Well, I think everyone can imagine what it was like to get into an underwater realm like that, and it's so easy to get focused in on things that you lose sight of things that may be threatening coming from the side or the back. So
yeah, that's why it's important. And we had very, very good crew on the ship, on the Hi'ialakai. And they also kept an eye on the ocean and on the people and on everything around them.
Well, that's another entire aspect. When we look at a project like this, I mean, so we've talked about the educators who participated, and then there were also scientists, I guess, marine biologists,
yes,
archaeologists,
yes,
anthropologists. I mean, you had a big spectrum. And, of course, one of the main thrusts of our Voices of Truth series really is to help our viewers link up with their possible kuleana in the community, jobs that need to be done, that perhaps projects that they could get interested in. So we talked about the educators and so forth, but if you look at the crew that participated, the support crew,
it was huge.
Yeah, you told me that you had cooks from far away who
we had
jobs working on the ship.
It was quite a diverse crew and very, very professional and very safety conscious.
Well, my reason for kind of going off in that little tangent is that there are so many things that go into putting together an expedition of this type, and we're not talking about a little boat. We're talking about a big ship, right?
This is a very large ship. It was originally built as a sub chaser, and so it's very quiet. The engine is insulated. I was quite impressed actually with the cleanliness of the ship, and I found it comfortable. From the captain, Captain Scott Kunster, and all the way down to the stewards in the galley is very professional. They have, I rarely think of NOAA in my everyday life as this being a huge department as part of the Department of Commerce. But their research vessels, I think we have 3 that are based here in Honolulu. And there are many, many jobs on these ships. There's the crew numbered 20, I think. And there are many, many jobs, from taking care of the mechanical systems to steering the ship. And I was happy to see that there were young women involved in this also. It wasn't just men who were up there on the bridge and working on the bridge.
Were there many local people, Hawaii people from
There
Hawaii,
are
from
several,
all over? Or?
There were quite a few people who are based right here in Hawaii.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. Potential job opportunities. What people can do to that they're interested in and stay here at home, or at least be based out
absolutely.
of here.
And they're
looking.
They
go all over the Pacific,
yeah,
right?
they do. They do go all over the Pacific to wherever the U.S. territories are, out to the Marianas, to Guam, Samoa, all those areas in between that are under U.S. protectorates or territories. We stopped also at Turn Island in the French frigate shoals, and there are several volunteers there who go out for months at a time, and among their jobs is walking there's a runway there. In fact, there's a seawall there that was built with stones from Kauai. This was last season. It's a substantial stone wall, and I got pictures of it. But one of the jobs of the volunteers is to walk the little runway. And to walk it every morning, very early, to look for any of the honu, any of the turtles that have hatched, and to pick up the honu and put them in the bucket and then take them into the ocean. They may have lost their way to the ocean there, and to look for them by the seawall and on the runway.
Runway you're talking about for an aircraft?
Yes, there's a Cessna that flies out there from Honolulu, and I think it's about a 3-hour flight, but that's the size aircraft that can land there.
Are these people camping out too, or do they have a
Well, there's an old
facility
Coast
there?
Guard station there. There's
Yeah.
a Loran facility, and that's where they stay. But they have solar power, and they're on water catchment, so they have to be very thrifty,
Mhm.
with their use of electricity and of water. And they have one barge a year that brings in supplies to them. So we took up gifts from Hawaii, from Kauai and the neighbor islands. We brought things like a stalk of bananas and papayas and fresh vegetables and things like that. And I think our Honolulu gang bought some games for them to enjoy. There are researchers, there are scientists up there who are studying the sharks and the monk seal and the honu.
And they stay there for how long at a time?
Oh, months.
Months?
It's months and months.
Takes a special kind of person to
It does.
work under those circumstances and over that period of time, I guess.
It does. It does. And with all those birds, there were 60,000 birds there when we were on the island, and normally there's, during the peak months, there's 100,000 birds on that island.
And that's Tern
Island.
Island.
Yes. And that's as far north as we went.
Did you, and you went aboard? You actually could go
We
aboard?
did. We could
the
go
island?
on board Tern Island without having to have new clothes or having them frozen for 48 hours.
So I guess they must figure that it's already been somewhat impacted or
Oh, quite.
compromised
It
by...
was, well, during World War II, and there's been economic activity out there. There were, people mining guano, and the war was a large impact. World War II was a very large impact on those islands. But prior to that, Hawaiian access, Hawaiian habitation and Hawaiian use, all the way up to Mokumanamana. I don't believe they found any archaeological sites any further north than that, or any habitation sites or any cultural use sites. But almost constant use for nearly 1,500 years.
Well, I think there was some... I think there's some history of some cultural impact, even up as far as Midway. And then there were also some early, well, not real early, but I guess fairly recent harvesting of everything from guano to eggs, bird eggs.
Right,
and,
right. And fish,
fishing.
It's a refuge now. And there has been no, that I'm aware of, no commercial fishing allowed. I think the fish stock has, I think, on its way to replenishing itself, but that's what we need the scientists for. We need the information about. And
Establish a baseline.
That's right.
Information. It's you wonder, well, okay, it's a refuge. To what extent is there any enforcement, or is it a difficult place to access, or... It's quite a ways up there.
It's quite a
There's
ways
no-
up
no
there.
minor-
You'd have to have a
feat.
sizable boat, and have to have.
I remember years ago talking with Uncle Buzzy Agard,
Yes.
who went up there as a young man and was so impressed with the stocks of the various fish and so forth. And they harvested quite a few. They went back up the next year and they realized that
Yeah, you
the
can't keep.
impact their harvest had not recovered within that
That's right.
season. And so, and he
Yeah.
realized, I think he started to realize early on that you can't hit that hatchery without impacting everything downstream, down into the islands. So
But you mentioned Archipelago, and I wanted to let everyone know that there's a beautiful photo exhibit by Susan Middleton and David Lichtschwager called Archipelago. It opened up this week at the Honolulu Academy of Arts at Linikona, and it's going to the Bishop Museum in October. It'll be there to the end of the year.
yeah, we have to
And
remember
then it will
that
travel around the
in
island.
case people are seeing this segment later, at some later time, that we're talking about September 2005. So,
Right. It will be traveling around the country, though, this photo exhibit of the Northwest Hawaiian Islands called Archipelago.
Well, that's fantastic. After you went to your northernmost point and then turned around and worked your way back down, did the return trip differ any from the
Not really.
the
We
trip
stopped.
going up
We
to-
stopped at Nihoa. We stopped at Mokumanamana again to snorkel, and then we stopped at Nihoa to pick up the team there, and then we came home, and passing through the channel between Kauai and Niihau at night both times.
Well, I know that you folks had satellite access so that you could upload and download at least once a day. Yeah.
Once a day.
And so you were, and anyone who was following the newspaper accounts, I guess there was a running account in the daily newspapers about your progress, where you were and what was going on.
That's right. We had Diane Leone with us from the Star Bulletin, and she wrote an article every day.
Well, I think everyone will be pleased at least at getting a little glimpse of what took place up there and what the project was about, and hopefully the images that we insert, during our conversation here, will give people a better idea of just how special Northwest Hawaiian Islands are.
Kaiapua, I wanted to mention that these fish and animals that live in the sea, they have no recognition of the political boundaries that the United States and other nations have imposed on the Pacific, because they travel. What we found through the research of people such as George Balazs is that they migrate from places, for example, like Turn Island, all the way down to Oahu and Hawaii and to Johnson Island and back up. In fact, there is a current that goes between Johnson Island and Turn Island, we have found. And with it carries a great deal of sea life with it. So the honu, the turtles, travel throughout the Pacific, and they range wide. And, humans are not the only ones who use the ocean. I mean, this is the home of those plants and animals that live there themselves. So this is something we want people to understand about these beautiful Kupuna Islands.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Mahalo,
We look forward
Kaiapua.
to the next opportunity, and we thank all of you for tuning in to Voices of Truth, once again, brought to you by the Kiwani Foundation. Please join us once again as soon as possible throughout our public access here in Hawaii, on the internet, and look at the credits for contact information and follow-up. This is Kaiopua 5 from the Kiwani Foundation saying mahalo nui loa a hui hou.
The clarity of the water, it is just so beautifully clear. The visibility was extensive. There was one particular man who has worked for NOAA for 15 years, and he said that this is the first time in all of his years on the ship that they have transported Native Hawaiians to these islands, and he acknowledged our cultural link to the Kupuna Islands, to those that are older than us that we can learn from.